Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Rams Review podcast. As we thought Darby were done in the January transfer window, but alas, as Darby always do, they throw a curveball. We're going to raise the roof here, Jack and I, because Darby have signed Kemar Roofe on a free transfer. The man's been out of work since July. I don't know what he's been doing, but he's not had a club. He's been unattached, but previously was at Rangers. So Jack and I decided to assemble the Avengers, so to speak, broadcast from Rams Review HQ and talk about Kmart Roof. Come on, Jack, you can raise the roof with me a little bit. You can raise the
Yeah,
roof. Let me do it
you
alone.
can
There
raise
we
the
go.
roof.
Raise the
There we
roof
are.
to Kmart Roof, who hopefully will come in and save our season. I mean, it couldn't really do any worse. So we'll see. We'll see. And Jack and I, we decided to bring on Martin from the Rangers Rabble podcast, who we've collaborated before with in writing, but not necessarily on the Zoom. Martin, how the heck are you? Welcome to the Rams Review podcast.
Very well. Thank you for bringing me on. And I much prefer the way Americans say Martin to the way that the British say Martin.
Fair
It's
enough.
much better.
Fair enough. We won't talk about what I just said to Martin off about who my all-time favorite player was, because I think I upset him and he was going to log off there for a minute. But it's okay. It's okay. Sorry, it is Henrik Larsson, but we'll never mention that again.
You just mentioned that again. You just
I've
done
just
that
upset
again.
him again. I also love Johnny Russell, so it's perfectly okay. It's perfectly okay. But
Again, a
Martin,
bigger
thanks,
hole
sir.
here,
Thanks for
Corey.
joining us. I am sorry to upset you with that. He had agreed to come on, and I just decided I just tell him who my favorite player is because I thought, oh yeah, I'll show him my football knowledge, and it was just the wrong answer. I should have just lied. He wouldn't have known.
No, I would never
Anyway,
know.
Martin, how are you?
Yeah, I'm very well. I'm very well. Still fat. So, all's good in the world.
Fair enough. Jack, good evening to you as well.
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, mate. The Scottish half of me is cringing more and more every time you put your foot in it with something related to Scottish football here. But we'll see how this goes.
I won't mention Bannockburn or anything like that. I won't mention Braveheart or what. I'll just talk about football. We'll just talk about Kmar Roof and just keep the show moving. Jack, it was a bit of a. I'm not going to say it was a bit of a strange one because Derby need warm bodies, but when I woke up this morning, I wasn't expecting to open up my phone and go, "Wow, he signed Kmar Roof." Your thoughts on Kmar Roof signing initially before we get into it with Martin?
Yeah, it's a much needed option up front, quite frankly. We don't know what Lars Jørgen Salveson's fitness is at the moment after he had to be taken off at QPR. Then there's Jerry Yates, and that's it because the John Brown is injured for the rest of the season, and Connor Washington is not registered. He appears to be training from the pictures I've seen today, but he's not registered in the squad for the second half of this season. So, I think it's a signing of necessity, isn't it, to bring in a free agent at this point in the season. There's generally a theory that people that are free agents at this point are still free agents for a reason. We'll see whether that's the case. I mean, Roof had some decent European numbers from what I could see, but with Rangers. But really, I mean, what he's remembered for is that short purple patch at Anderlecht, and Derby fans won't have very fond memories, of course, as well from his time at Leeds. 3 goals in 18-19, or the Spygate season, as people might remember it better in terms of those clashes with Leeds. But now he's on the other side, so we've got to hope that he can help Derby over the line to Championship survival.
Yeah, he's on the other side of the bushes from where that Leeds guy was. And yeah, I remember him, Jack, from Oxford and from Leeds, where he was actually pretty good and pretty serviceable. And I was like, wow, this guy's pretty good. Went to Anderlecht, he did okay, and then he went to Rangers, and you're like, that's a pretty shrewd sign in for Rangers, which leads me into Martin from Rangers Rabble podcast. Martin, um, what do you make of the news? Kmar Roof, who's been unattached since leaving Rangers in the summer, has joined Championship strugglers Derby County.
I'm delighted for him. I've got nothing negative to say about Kmar Roof from a purely human level. He's a great character in the dressing room. He's a really nice guy. He's really down to earth as well. I think it's. I mean, I don't want to go through all the stuff because I know you're going to ask me about it. It's a great signing for Derby in terms of the kind of player you're getting. So good with the ball at his feet. He's so strong against defenders. He can score goals. He can pass. He scored probably one of the greatest goals I've seen in Europe from just behind the halfway line in a mud puddle. So yeah, he's a great footballer. If, and it's a big if, you can keep him fit.
Yeah, and that's the thing, Martin, isn't it? That, you have a player who has a poor injury record anyway, and he's coming off the back of 6 months not playing any games, and being thrust into the throes of a relegation battle is never easy for any player, let alone one that's not played for 6 months. And you would kind of expect the level that he has to, the learning curve, so to speak, to get back up to speed is going to be greatly diminished for him. And that's the concern, I think, for me, and I think probably for Jack as well. We'll get into that, is just that injury record. But Martin, talk to me about Kemar Roofe. What type of player is he? Because he's listed as a forward player. But when
Yeah.
I've seen Kemar Roofe play, he can kind of play as that number 9. He can play on the wings. And, I've always kind of fancied him as someone who can play behind the striker, as a bit of a second striker, as a bit of a 10, a little bit of a deeper player as well, kind of meandering about that forward line, which is great for versatility. But what's the best version of Kemar Roofe that we can get?
Striker, centre forward. You play him centre forward, you get the best out of him. However, I think he's the kind that he's got the ability that he can play anywhere in the front three or front four, depending on what formation you're playing, and he could probably play central midfield as well. I can't overstate how good a footballer Kemar Roofe is. He was far too good for Scottish football, not for Rangers, but for Scottish football. He was well above the level of Scotland. We got him purely because of his injury record. But you play him through the middle, he will score goals. There is no doubt that he will score goals. You play him out wide, he will create. You play him behind the striker, he will create and score goals. So really, I don't know how Derby's set up. I don't know if it's a 4-2-3-1, a 4-3-3, a 3-5-2, whatever it is. But anywhere along that attacking line, he fits in perfect. And it's how many players do we say this about though throughout the years who are strikers but never play striker? And then we moan about the amount of goals that they don't score, even though they're not played in that position. He is a striker, but he can play everywhere.
We had that, Martin, where we signed. Remember this, Jack, when we signed Andy Vyman. I think it was, where did we sign Andy Vyman from? Villa or something, right? And then
Yeah.
he was fantastic, and we were like, we're going to put this guy on the wing. And he was okay, but he wasn't great. And then Bristol City, we released him, and he went to Bristol City, and they started, lo and behold, playing him as a forward. And he was like banging in 20 goals a year. And you're like, well, where was this? It's like, because he wasn't playing his best position. Like, you might as well put him at goalkeeper. Um, you know, like, they just do mental things, Martin. And that's the most frustrating thing, I think, as football fans, is when you see a player that can score goals and do the business, and they're like, why are you putting him here? Like that.
Yeah,
Just no.
we signed a player called Sam Lammers, who is a striker, and we decided to play him in the number 10 and the right wing, left wing. All the Rangers fans fell at him because he wasn't scoring goals. His performances weren't great. Goes on loan to FC 20 and scores the most amount of goals in a row in Dutch history. So, yeah, I feel your pain.
So, Martin, talk to me about it, because I looked at Kemar Roofe. He played about 100 times for Rangers, roughly, and scored about 40 goals.
Mhm.
That's back of the cigarette packet. I guess I can't say that. Back of the notebook, back of the napkin kind of math. So about 1 in 4. Not a terrible strike rate for a striker. What are the strengths of Kemar Roofe? Where is he? Like, where is he really good at? Where does he excel? What can we expect in terms of strengths?
Ball at his feet. Ball at his feet is fantastic. I can't rate him highly enough. His ability to put the ball in the back of the net, to be honest, a lot. See, when you say 100 appearances, 40 goals, there was a lot of those appearances off the bench. They weren't all starts because of his injury record. So if you, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, I would imagine if you looked at goals to games when he started ratio, be a lot better. Putting the ball in the back of the net, bringing other players in, annoying the life out of defenders. He's quite a cheeky, old school centre forward. It just honestly, and I really don't want you to ask me about injuries because I really don't want to depress Derby supporters, Corey.
Well, that leads me into part of my next question, Martin, as we've talked about his strengths and where he can really get at teams and really be effective. What are the weaknesses in Kmar Roofe's game? And I know that you're going to hit me with the I word, which we're going to talk about, I'm assuming, after the weaknesses. But what are the weaknesses to his game, or the areas of improvement, or where we probably have to cover him in the team a little bit?
Well, again, depends on where you play him. And again, I don't know Derby's tactics or whatever. I don't know if your wide players need to track back. He's decent at tracking back, but not fantastic. at it. If you bring Kemar Roofe in to play a game that suits Kemar Roofe, there's not a lot of weaknesses there. Passing could maybe be slightly better, but I think, me personally, I'm old school, right? I'm a 4-4-2 man. I want a big striker, a wee striker. I want my wingers to just bomb forward, and I want my defenders just to half everybody, right? That's my school of football. So
Martin,
in
me and you
terms
are
of,
going to get on really well when we talk about football in the pub because I'm all about old school football.
well, see, I'm not old enough to drink in American pubs, so um, well, yeah, I am, but I like to pretend I'm not. So weaknesses, injuries. I'm sorry, it's injuries, and oh, here we go. So 2021 season 20 to 21, he missed 14 games. Season 21-22, he missed 34 games. Season 22-23, he missed 35 games through injury. And season 23-24, he missed 12 games. So that is Kemar Roofe in a nutshell.
I mean, he would have played nearly 400 games for Rangers had he not missed. I mean, you're telling me those numbers. That's essentially 3 full seasons of
Yeah.
that he's missed because it's 14 and 12 is what 26, and then that that's 3/4 of a season, and then the other 30 games that's basically 2 full seasons.
Yeah.
So you're telling me in the 4 or 5 years he spent at Rangers, he essentially missed 3 years of playing time.
Pretty much. Yeah.
What type of injuries were these, Martin? Were these like impact injuries with defenders scything him down, or are these like hamstrings, muscular things like those niggly ones that are more annoying?
Calf problems, knee injuries, thigh injuries. So you could say impact, but you could also, personally, I just don't believe his body is strong enough to be a professional footballer, unfortunately. I think that's what it boils down to. However, I will caveat all this by saying that at Rangers in the last 2 or 3 years, we've had horrendous injuries. So I don't know how good, and I've said this about 6 times now, I don't know how good Derby are with our medical department, what the Derby are like with injuries. I can see Jack's face.
We're not
I
great
don't
with
think
injuries. Not great.
Right, well, but it's
After
not the best
overhauling
team
the
for him to
medical
go to.
department, we're not great. Man,
Right.
you weren't lying. You said you were going to depress me, and it's just gotten progressively worse.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, Jack,
Sorry.
go on. Ask a question.
Yeah, so I mean, just touching on that injury record, you said you didn't want to depress us. On the one hand, even me sat here with me brain injury with blue badge, I've just been given hope that I might get a career as a professional footballer. But I think, I mean, obviously Derby's injuries have been a massive point of contention, particularly on the Paul Warne. Obviously, there's hope that might change under John Eustace, but I think the fact remains that a lot of their specialists in their kind of sports science and so on aren't necessarily football specialists. So this could be interesting. But I think on a contract until the end of the season, Derby just need somebody to give them that sprinkling of magic. It sounds like he's got that technical ability that even if they're bringing him off the bench to just influence a game, how you talk about a 4-4-2, for example, Derby's kind of one of their big January signings, literally as well as metaphorically, was a 6'3" Norwegian striker who has quite a bit of aerial threat, quite a bit of work rate. Is that the sort of profile of player that you could see him linking up well with?
Yeah, 100%. Why is every team in England trying to get a Haaland into their team? What is
To be
it?
fair, you say that he is blonde and does have a man bun, and
You
the
know,
coach who signed him was bald and looked like a poor man, Pep Guardiola.
yeah, it's crazy. Everybody's trying to get a Haaland, isn't he? He would work perfectly, absolutely perfect. He would also work perfectly with a small striker. He's very good in the air as well. I should say he's very, very good in the air. What he's great at is that late run into the box, a nice low cross, and he's getting on the end of it. Low cross, high cross, header, whatever. He's so good at that. But if you've got him playing next to a very tall striker, I mean, that's perfect for him. He's great at making the runs, although for every third run, he's out for 6 months. So, but apart from that, he's great at making those runs. Playing aside a big striker would be great for him. Look, if he's at Derby now, if he stays fit for the rest of the season, then Derby will be absolutely fine. He has that quality. Whether the injuries, however, over the last 4 or 5 years have took their toll, and maybe he's not quite as good as he was at Anderlecht or at Rangers, I still think there's enough quality there that Derby will be absolutely fine if you keep them fit.
Yeah, that's the big if. And Jack, I'm kind of getting the same kind of feeling that I did about Dwight Gale. It's very similar to that kind of signing where he came in kind of late. Gale had kind of struggled with injuries. Obviously, we were in League One at the time, not the championship, but Gale scored a couple and then put himself out for the rest of the year. But if Kemar Roofe comes in, scores 3 or 4 goals, and we win 3 of those games, he can sit out the rest of the year. That's perfectly okay because that probably would be not enough, but close near enough to be able to get us out of the quagmire that we're in. Martin, anything else that we need to know about Kemar Roofe, like free kicks or set pieces or anything like that? You talked about that intelligence with the runs. Is he good at anything else? Because Derby's been pretty good with set pieces so far this season, and we've signed a couple of big Norwegian lads. So hopefully that'll continue. What other strings to the bow does Kemar Roofe have?
He can score from inside his own half, which is a not bad skill to have. Look, in terms of set pieces and stuff, our right back James Tavernier takes every penalty, every corner, every free kick. On the odd occasion, look, he's got the technical ability to take free kicks and take penalties. His technical ability is probably his biggest strength for me. He is so good with the ball at his feet, and he's such an intelligent footballer. But in terms of like free kicks and stuff, like I say, our right back hogs everything. That's why our right back scored 120 odd goals because he's the penalty taker. So
I'm just going to throw one more point in here, Corey. Now, Kemar Roofe has played 5 times, I believe it is, for Jamaica. Could there be
Yes.
a former former Rams boss
Yes.
watching?
I was thinking the exact same thing. I was thinking the exact same thing, Jack. Me and you are so synced up. Yeah, so Kemar Roofe does play for Jamaica, and there is a former England manager and former Derby County manager who is currently there, the one that likes the umbrella. That we always turn to.
the one that's extremely good at accents.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes. Yes.
But I mean, I hope he doesn't need his umbrella out there, to be fair. But yeah, that did keep my interest.
I just want to hear his accent. That's all I want to hear.
He's not done it yet, from what I understand. But you know what? If it happens, I will message you. I will send you that clip if we get it, mate. Because yeah, that will be interesting. I think the last thing to say on him is you talked about his character at the start, and I think that shone through a little bit in this interview today. I also remember speaking to a couple of people who have worked with him previously. This was ages ago, and there was just a clip of him happening to come up. And just off the back of that, they were talking about what a sound guy he is, how hard he works on his craft. And I think he's going to be coming in now wanting to prove himself. This is a short-term deal, so for Derby, it's a roll of the dice with little risk. For him, if this doesn't work, where does he go next? Is going to be a question. So he's playing for a bit of a future here. If he can keep Derby off and he can get to that kind of good level of quality that we've seen from him, then he could be an exciting addition if he could stay fit for Derby in the championship going forward.
Yeah,
he's so good. Sorry, Corey. I was just going to say he's so good with the youngsters as well. He'll take loads of time out for the development lads. He's so good round about the dressing room. And just to kind of hone in on his mentality and the way that he is around the football club, I just told you the injury record, how many games he didn't play for Rangers. And towards the end, obviously, supporters were getting frustrated because he was on big wages for us, big wages. But every supporter still loves him. He's left the football club, and you won't hear that many. But all you'll hear is Kemar Roofe, all right, injury prone, but a great guy. And the Rangers supporters loved him. And how many guys do you know that have been at your football club that have essentially missed 2.5 seasons out of 4, and the supporters have still got good words to say about him? He will give everything while he's fit for Derby.
Yeah, that's a great point, Martin, and a great point, Jack. Coming in on a 6-month deal, that's such low risk for Derby and such potentially high reward. I mean, if he scores 3 or 4 goals, Jack, and we pick up, they're worth 7 points to us. That's massive. And Martin, just so you're aware of Derby's form, we picked up 2 points since Boxing Day, so not ideal form for us. But it's also good. We have a young striker in DeJean Brown who's out for the season, so we'll be able to help him with that, mentor him, about what it's like with things like that. And that's such an important aspect that he can come into the group, not be a big time Charlie, and sit down and say, okay, guys, let's do this together. Let's do this and have that kind of mentality going forward. And that's really good to hear. So, Jack, Martin, you said you were going to depress me, and I think I was a little depressed in the middle of that episode, but like towards the end and the beginning, I was pretty excited about this. I think you've kind of given me some points here that I can sleep soundly at night.
Can I just say, I said I'm going to try and not depress you.
Oh, you said you were going to try to not depress me. I thought you said you were going to depress me. I thought that was
going to try not to. Once I found out who your favourite footballer was, though, I was really glad I was going to hammer it.
I mean, if you keep talking about my favorite football, Martin, I'll put him on the video. Like he'll pop up in the corner, or whatever.
I will fly to America.
And what? Punch me?
No, I wouldn't do that.
Okay, because you can't say that on the internet.
No, you can't say that on the internet. No, I will fly to America and buy you a pint. That's what I'll do.
Fair enough. And when I come up to Scotland, I'll get you an Iron Brew. Because
oh no, I don't. Iron Brew.
You don't like Iron Brew?
Oh, it's disgusting.
I'm in the same camp here. I thought it was just me. I can't admit this to Scottish people when I go and stay with family. But you know what? I'll say on the internet, I mean, none of them will watch this. Let's face it, they're not bothered about what Derby are doing in their new player, so I can concur with you there. Yeah, Iron Brew. Weird.
You're Iron Brew. You both are Iron Brew out camp then.
Yes. Oh no, Iron Brew Extra, which is sugar free, is nice. But full fat Iron Brew, oh, it just tastes sugar, man. It's disgusting.
It puts hairs on your chest. I remember drinking it like 8 years old. My dad was like, "This will put hairs on your chest." It's a very acquired taste.
Yeah. So. If you're a camel, yeah.
Okay. I love the animals we've talked about this week, by the way. On Monday night, because we're talking free agents on the podcast, which you should go and listen to if you haven't. We're talking about Ryan Kent as well as we're going to do free agents. Obviously, we're talking about crocodiles. Now we're on to camels. What next?
I mean, this is all natural too. Like this is not planned. This is just.
Do you want my opinion on Ryan Kent?
Go on, because there have been a couple of fans.
Yeah, and then we'll bring you back on, Martin, when Ryan Kent signs.
Don't sign him. Right.
Okay.
When Rangers signed him, we signed him for 7 million off Liverpool. We signed him, and for a season, he was outstanding. Right. You probably know there's another team in Glasgow called Celtic. Right.
Mm-hmm.
For a season, he absolutely terrorised them, and he was outstanding. And then as soon as Ryan Kent decides I've had enough, he's had enough. And you don't see him for the next 12 months. So don't sign him.
Yeah. He went to Fenerbahce, now he's a free agent.
Yeah. Bit of contrast there between Roofe. It seems we've got a guy of the free agents league. It seems we got a good egg, which is definitely positive.
Well, Ryan Kent's never injured, but I mean
that's true.
I won't rub that in too much.
Fair enough. Martin, thank you very much for your time this evening. Talking about Kemar Roofe. Jack and I are very appreciative of you spending a few minutes with us, even though I upset you pre-show.
Not a problem. Anytime, guys.
Martin from the Rangers Rabble podcast. Jack, Kemar Roofe is a Ram. We'll see. Jury's still out. I'm sure we'll talk about it in next week's podcast. But I'm not going to say I'm excited, but I'm also not going to say that I'm not excited, if that makes sense. Like I'm kind of on the fence here and wait to be seen if he's chucked in on Saturday against Millwall.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I'm excited because I think anyone watching this should take bets now as to how many Roofe-related puns I can stick into Saturday's match report.
How about all three of us to finish before the catchphrase? Just raise the roof a little bit for Kmar. No,
listen, come on. No, I can't. No,
you're just going to let me do it myself?
Yeah, you're doing it yourself.
Jack's just let me do it myself.
There, you've got one. That's it. That's all you're getting.
There you go.
We're raising the roof for Kmar Roofe. There you go. Start all my roofing puns. I can start them back up, so that'll be great. But Martin, Jack, thanks for being with us. Martin, thanks for being with us tonight. We greatly appreciate it.
Not a problem.
And Rams fans, Jack and I will be back as the Rams probably hunt for championship survival as we look into free agents. Our podcast the next week will be on the way as well, with plenty more content to come both on the podcast, on the socials, and on YouTube. If you've enjoyed this video and made it this far, please share your comments about your thoughts on Iron Brew. And also, go ahead and subscribe because that would be helpful as well. But until then, for Martin from the Rangers Rabble podcast, from Jack and Corey at Rams Radio HQ, the last thing to say is up the Rams.